We got a new number one in college baseball. It is the Tennessee Volunteers. Kyle Schassburger and David Kahn with you on Dugouts, Dumbbells, and Dingers. 2 regular season weekends remain unless you're the Big West. You got 3 of those. No conference tournament for them. We'll talk about all of that, Power 10, dudes, hat tips, SDAs, and more. But, David, I know we're on a time crunch here. You got to catch a flight, head to Chi-Town, my neck of the woods. And I thought there was no better way than to start this pod with the news of college football bowl sponsorship yesterday. Ross Dellinger broke with Yahoo that Snoop Dogg is putting his name. He is bringing the juice back to college football. We're gonna have the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl. There you go. You're on the juice. You're ready to go. You're juicing.
And the gin.
Oh, the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl presented by Gin and Juice by Dre and Snoop. That's coming up on December 28th. So I thought, Con, because we're giving love to the Arizona Bowl, which is played in Tucson at Arizona Stadium on the campus of U of A, I wanted to give some love. I wanted to spotlight the Arizona Wildcats, who now have a 2-game lead in the Pac-12 standings. We'll get to Charlie Condon, who's got 33 home runs, and he's on the doorstep of setting a new BB Core home run record and so much more. But how about these Cats, who had a murderer's row schedule? We laid it out a week ago. They're going to finish with Utah on the road and then Oregon State at home. But they have now done something that they haven't done in Pac-12 play since the adoption of this round-robin scheduling, and that is defeat all the California schools. That's all 4 of them, 11-1 in those 4 series. And then 2, through their first 24 games in Pac-12 play, 17-7, second best start in the league. And they're not wowing you with numbers. They're just playing great baseball at the best time of the year.
They really are. And like they've been kind of creeping around that bottom 5 of the top 25 the last few weeks. And now they've vaulted up to number 17 in this week's rankings. But the cool thing is, for Arizona's perspective, is we highlighted that series, Arizona at Utah, this coming weekend, of saying this series will decide the Pac-12. It might not anymore, because Utah went to Eugene and dropped 2 of 3, while Arizona, like you said, completed its takedown of the California schools by sweeping Stanford. So now with a 2-game lead, they're more comfortable. Utah's got to play with that aggressive nature, and that could benefit Utah. It could not. But for Arizona, they have a bit more breathing room as we get into the second to the last weekend of the Pac-12 and college baseball regular season. And that's a huge, huge difference from what we expected for a team that in Arizona that you don't really remember talking about in the last few years in college baseball. But this is a team it's been to Omaha. It's been to the College World Series. Like, this is not a newcomer to the baseball national spotlight. We just haven't really thought of them, because when you think of the Pac-12, it's been Stanford, because they made the last 3 College World Series. That's the team that's always been at the top of the wagon. And now Arizona and maybe even Utah is looking to supplant them.
Yeah, Jay Johnson took them there in 01, and then or 2021 rather, and then left for Baton Rouge, obviously, and led the Tigers to a College World Series in year 2 at LSU a season ago. So Arizona has kind of been picking up the pieces since Jay had left. And who's the head coach? I don't even have it. Is it Chip Lindsey? Does that sound right?
That sounds right. I'll have to confirm that here momentarily.
So Arizona has been absent, though, from the NCAA tournament. Let's see. They made it the last couple. So they've made it every year.
It's Chip Hale. Chip Hale's their head coach.
Chip Lindsey's a football coach. Chip something. So Chip Hale has guided them to a 29-17 record. That's 17-7 mark in Pac-12 play to this point. RPI of 33. They got a 2-game lead on Utah, as we mentioned. They've won 7 of their last 10. They had a winning streak just a couple of weeks ago that I think had ran close to 14 games in a row, and at Utah and at home against Oregon State. And Utah, Con, you brought that up. I mean, they stumbled in a big way against Oregon this past weekend. I still think right now the Pac-12, if you take a snapshot of the league, I think it's 4 teams that they should get into the NCAA tournament. And I was doing an exercise this morning, heading in, trying to figure out who all the at-large teams might be and where they're going to come from. And could this be a year where the SEC, really, I think 2 weeks ago, you thought maybe 8 teams. But, man, based on what we had this past weekend, I mean, there could be 9. They could get 10. I mean, I'm looking at 34 at-large bids. Let's just say 14 of those go to the ACC and the SEC combined. And we can maybe parse through this more as a bigger exercise on Thursday's podcast, but that leaves you 20 teams, and you're going, maybe the Big Ten gets 2. What kind of bid stealers out there? Assuming there are no bid stealers, the Pac-12 might get 4. That leaves you with 14 remaining. The Sun Belt is going to give you 3, maybe 4, 10. you're running out of spots at that point. The Big West could give you two. I mean, UC Irvine stumbled this past weekend. I mean, what my point is, Con, we are at the crest. Okay, this final 2-week sprint. I mean, it is a gauntlet. All of these games mean so much, and we're having so many impactful results left and right. The SEC notwithstanding. I mean, we're just in for quite the finish, quite the ride here to the regular season and figuring out the postseason picture.
Well, the crazy thing is, like you said, there's so much left to be decided, except for probably the SEC in terms of who's going to Hoover, right? I mean, Auburn's dead. Like that they're done. That if they somehow make it to Hoover, I don't know. It might not even be mathematically possible at this point. I have to look at the standings again, but their season likely over. Missouri, tough battle to climb in the last 2 weekends of the regular season because of the fact that LSU's figured it out, at least in some way, shape, or form. And they showed it this weekend when they took down the number one team in the country in Texas A&M, winning 2 of 3. Their RPI is now up to 33. They're 2 games ahead of that cut line in Hoover. And A&M was their big boy series. They've got Alabama and Tuscaloosa, which isn't easy, but Alabama's been kind of stubbing their toe and been a little seesaw of late. And then they close with Ole Miss, a team that LSU on paper should beat, and it's in Baton Rouge. So you're going to have all those fans fired up to make sure that LSU secures its spot, not only in Hoover, but I think, Shass, if LSU goes 4-2 in those series and it gets them to 13 conference wins, I think that's enough to get them into the field of 64.
And if they only go 3-3, I mean, if they win 2 or 3 games in Hoover, I think that's going to be fine too. But my point being, I think LSU is going to redefine that NCAA tournament bubble of what we think an SEC team needs to get to with 13 wins and an RPI, inside of 40, closer to 30. And, the RPI is not an issue for a team like LSU. I mean, they play in the SEC, and they have such a great out-of-conference schedule. Granted, they might not have played the best of competition. Early on, they might have had a couple of, high-profile bouts. The win at Texas, I know, was huge for them earlier this season. But, yeah, LSU, I called it, man. I told you. That was their Super Bowl this past weekend at this point. With A&M coming into Baton Rouge, it was just it was a bad spot for the Aggies, who are a little banged up, dealing with a couple of injuries and didn't get good starts out of each of their first 2 guys. Again, that could be room for concern, certainly for an Aggies fan, but, give it to A&M. They were able to pour it on in game 3 and at least get out of there with a win as they just, was it 14-4, I think, at the finale. But, I watched a lot of that early in the weekend, games 1 and game 2. Both were on national television, which was great. Saw Bear Jones and Tommy White, first White, go back-to-back in game 2, back-to-back homers to help pull back even, I think, at that point. And, they were tightly contested across those first couple of days. But, LSU had all the juice, and they have everything to play for at this point. So I think even 3-3 and 2 wins in Hoover will get them into the tournament. And I think it's going to be very hard to keep them out if you're the selection committee looking at the entire body of work of what LSU has done to this point. They can hit with anybody if they decide to pitch. And how about our boy Christian Little having maybe his best outing of his LSU career? I think it was in the middle game in game 2 where he went over 3 innings. I think he had 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, didn't allow more than a run, if that. But Thatcher Hurd still can't find the zone. We saw what he became at the end of last season. Maybe Christian Little becomes what Thatcher Hurd became last year for the LSU Tigers. But, now in more kind of an underdog, under the radar type role as LSU is trying to pull themselves from the deepest depths of this conference. Did you see the end? And we'll get to Charlie Condon here in the SEC in a moment. Did you see the end of, and I know it doesn't mean anything for Auburn, all they can do is really play spoiler, but did you see game 3 with Ole Miss on Sunday? The latest game of Sunday's contest. Ole Miss jumped them for a 5-0 lead, going for the sweep on the Plains. Ole Miss playing for their Hoover lives. And as of right now, it's Auburn and Missouri who would not make it to Hoover as that tournament starts 2 weeks from tomorrow. We'll be on the road 2 weeks from today, Con. But Ole Miss at 9-15, LSU each at 9-15 in the league. Auburn comes back. They tie it up in the 9th. They were down 9-8 entry. Mason Mainers had a leadoff triple. He comes in, then you have a couple wild pitches and a pass ball, and Auburn walks off Ole Miss to salvage a win. It was like they won the College World Series there at the Plains.
Yep. I mean, they haven't had much to celebrate this year, right? Like they currently, Auburn in the SEC is 4-20. They're 22-24 overall. So when you have a comeback win like that, you might have to celebrate like you won the College World Series because that might be as close as Auburn is getting to the College World Series. here in 2024, unfortunately, for Butch Thompson and company. But like, look at the SEC right now. Can you tell me any team not named Ole Miss, Auburn, Missouri, and potentially Florida, if they can't get above 500, is not worthy of making the field?
That's 11 teams.
No, but I'm saying, like, take Florida out. Like
yes.
Knock out Florida, even, and you still have 10. Like, people are saying, oh, Vandy might not make it. Vandy's going to make it, okay? Like, I know they're 11 and 13 in the SEC right now. They're 32 and 16 overall. Their RPI is good. Their strength schedule is good. They're going to make it, okay? If Vandy doesn't make it, I'll be stunned. I'll be that'll be because of bid stealers. I know Vandy took it on the chin this weekend from Georgia, but listen, everybody's been taking it on the chin from Georgia right now because that team can hit. And speaking of teams that can hit, new number one. We traveled back in time to 2022, apparently, because here come the Tennessee Volunteers again. Out of the woodwork. They are now the new number one team in the country, and that is a team that can hit the baseball with reckless abandon. I mean, this team is firing on all cylinders. And did you see the Blake Burke homer that was part of the back-to-backs in the middle game of that series?
When he went back-to-back with Christian Moore, I did not see the video, no.
I don't think the ball's come down yet. Like, it might have gone into orbit. He absolutely destroyed it. And we've seen Blake Burke do that in Hoover. We've seen him do that in the postseason. He's incredible. And this entire team is just firing on all cylinders. It's fun to watch, especially for a Tennessee team that didn't come in with the lofty expectations that they did a couple of years ago, trying to hold this number one spot the entire year and ultimately bowed out in the Super Notre Dame. Now they went from being the hunted to being the hunter, and it's certainly benefiting Tony Vitello and company.
Blake Burke is a guy, comparatively to last year, and you look at the team from 2022, and Burke was a freshman on that squad, a team that was, a runaway freight train for much of the season before they had drawn Notre Dame at the Lindsey Nelson Super Regional, and the Fighting Irish and Link Jarrett were able to upset the Vols and get to Omaha. But Tennessee, with a rebuttal the following season, when the team was not as good, certainly on paper, was able to find their way to Omaha last year. But it took kind of rounding into form in the back half, even really that last third, because Tennessee, tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm remembering incorrectly, Con, they didn't really show up in Omaha either last year. Were they one and done? If not, they played two games. They didn't do much.
2 and done.
Yeah, they didn't do much of anything in Hoover last year, but by golly,
in Hoover they were 2 and done, or 1 and done. Yes, they went 1 and done. I think in Omaha they went 2 and done.
Yeah, no, not in Omaha. In Hoover, they didn't do anything. Yes. They were lethargic. However, they were finding themselves. They were playing for something more. There was something left to be desired after failing to get to Omaha the previous year with that, star-studded lineup that they had, the pitching, the offense, and Blake Burke kind of epitomized, I think, what Tennessee was for a lot of last season. And that was just kind of going through the motions, failing to live up to the expectations of what that 2022 team had done. And Burke is one of those guys, and I think he'd be the first to raise his hand. He applied himself more. He locked in, his attitude, his focus, everything changed, and the entire team kind of took on that sort of character and intensity and kind of started to embody, hey, we gotta work harder. Like, nothing's going to be given to us. We've got this target on our back, and Tennessee was able to, find that mojo to get to Omaha last year. And now they've just carried it over into this season quietly for so long, up until really the last 7 weeks, Con. They haven't lost an SEC series. That's 7 in a row. I mean, this team is as good as the 2022 team. Yes, I'll say it, as good. They maybe aren't as deep. Certainly when you look at starting pitching, I mean, they're having to get creative with this piggybacking. I know our friend Joe Healy has used that term with D1 Baseball and the Highway to Hoover podcast, but, they'll play it by ear, day by day, on days 2 and 3 of a series. So, but it has worked to this point, and they're able to outslug anyone. They can hit with the best of them, and it has resulted in the number 1 overall ranking at 39-9, 7 straight SEC wins, followed by Clemson, A&M, Kentucky at 4. Arkansas falls to 5 after dropping 2 or 3 in Lexington. ECU, Oregon State, Florida State, Duke, and Virginia round out the Power 10 in total. Con, before we get to Charlie, and Georgia is sitting right at number 15 at 35-12, just bludgeoned to death Vanderbilt this past weekend at Foley Field. And I am concerned for Vanderbilt. I mean, Vandy would be that 10th SEC team if you remove Florida from the equation, like you had suggested. But I mean, my goodness, the in and out, the jumping in the top 10, certainly the top 5. Again, it's just so awesome, I think, here with 2 weeks ago in the regular season.
It is. And I do want to mention for Tennessee, you mentioned, they're as good as they were 2 years ago. Remember, they had, 150-something home runs at season's end, and they set all these records and whatever. Right now, they're at 126 with 2 weekends to go in the regular season. So you got what? If they get to Omaha 20 more games, 15 more games, they could beat it. They could beat what they already have. They're second in the nation right now behind our boys from Austin P. Lyle Miller Green, still doing big things, my former dude of the week. But this Tennessee team, they can beat you up and down the lineup. I think that's maybe the difference from the Tennessee team of a couple years ago, because you mainly focused on a couple of dudes in that lineup that were the true mashers. But you look at Tennessee's lineup right now, and you've got Blake Burke, Christian Moore with 21 dingers, Billy Amick, Kavaris Tears, Dylan Drayling, all with 14-plus bombs as part of their 126 as a team. They're hitting .324, and on the mound, they look a lot different than they did a couple of years ago, mainly because they don't have Dolander and Burns with them, who Chase Burns, by the way, another phenomenal start for Wake Forest over the weekend. 4th time he's won the ACC Pitcher of the Week, first time that's ever happened in Wake Forest history. But then you got Drew Beam leading the charge. You've got AJ Causey, who's been solid, and they're still waiting on AJ Russell to come back. So if AJ Russell comes back at the right time for Tennessee, I mean, look out, because their rotation is going to be as loaded as ever. And it's not the combination of Dolander, Beam, and Burns, but kind of close. Beam's been through this ringer before. He knows what it can be. AJ Russell's on that team. So this Tennessee team has all of the pieces to go all the way and win this thing.
57-9 they were 2 years ago. So this version of Tennessee would have to win 18 more games and not
they're going to get there
to match that. Yeah, but that's not the goal. The goal is to get to Omaha and to win it all, which
exactly.
Tennessee is one of those programs, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, one of those programs that has never won a national championship in baseball. So when we did our little blue-blooded draft as part of the NFL draft hysteria that was going on, teams that have been to Omaha or not, but are missing that national title, Tennessee is one of those. So Tennessee is your new number one. As I had mentioned, you were trying to project out the amount of games left and how many home runs they could get to. At minimum, them, like Georgia, like Charlie Condon, has about 9 games left. Let's say 9. You've got no more midweeks for Mr. Charlie Condon, who's leading the nation in home runs with 33, tying Jack Caglione's record in the BB Core era set a year ago. We'll get to you, Mr. Pete Incaviglia, who has the national record all-time at 48 back in 1985. Can Charlie Condon possibly pass Mr. Pete of OK State from the mid-'80s? I don't know, but Charlie will have 9 games at minimum remaining. No more midweeks. That's 6 SEC games. You'll play maybe 1 in Hoover if you're outside the top 4. That's 7. And then 2, you're guaranteed in the regional weekend, which I think Georgia, after sweeping Vanderbilt this past weekend at home, they're sitting as pretty as anyone to be a host, one of the top 16 teams. In D1 baseball right now has the Bulldogs at number 15 at 35-12 after a 4-0 week. That's a jump of 4 spots. And Charlie Condon now just one homer away from passing what Jack Caglione of Florida did a year ago.
Here's the 3-1 to Condon. This one's hit deep to left. This one is way out of here. Charlie Condon has done it again. His 33rd home run of the year.
That's David Johnston on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network. 33 for Charlie. Con, that's 7 straight games with a home run. Cags did it in 9 straight games this year.
He's coming for Cags. He's coming for your boy.
God. I mean, this dude is not human. He's 6'6", too. He's so tall. He's put on so much muscle since starting as a walk-on at Athens. I mean, just the way he's reinvented his body and applied himself and his plate discipline and his pit, the pitches that he's able to pick out. And just, I mean, he's so patient. He is such a big league hitter right now in college. We said that about Dylan Cruz a year ago, but I mean, my goodness, this guy's pitch selection, his ability to just replicate every single day going out to the ballpark. 33 home runs in 47 games. I mean, it's almost automatic.
Yeah, it is. And the crazy thing is, so you talked about Cag setting the BB Core era last year with 33 home runs. He did it in 71 games. So Condon has done it in 24 less games. He's tied Cag's record that he did a year ago. I ran the numbers because this is what I do. I nerd out on this stuff. So in order for Charlie Condon to break the record based on the pace he's on right now, he would need to play 70 games. It is my projection based on the on-pace calculators that I use. He would need to play 70 games to break Pete Incaviglia's record of 48 that he set back with OK State in 1985. By the way, Pete did it in 75 games. He had 48 at that point. So, in all honesty, Charlie Condon and Georgia would need to get to the College World Series for him to have a shot, in my eyes. Now, Charlie could continue to go on a tear, hit 3 homer games, and this could all be thrown out of proportion, and he could do it by the time they get to Supers. But, we'll see. It is, for those who are wondering, is it possible? Is there enough games for Charlie Condon to do this? Yeah, 100%. Especially if Georgia goes on a little run in Hoover here in a couple weeks, and they play like 4 or 5 games. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Charlie Condon, to break that record, Georgia wants to play deep into Hoover, which the last couple of years, they've kind of looked like Tennessee looked as well. Lifeless in Hoover. So maybe a little extra individual motivation for the Dogs to stick around in Alabama a little bit longer this year.
75 games for Pete Incaviglia. 75. That's without Super Regionals. Super Regionals only came around in 1999. Have you looked close? Probably not, because this is something I would do. You crunch the numbers. You project. You add all this math. I just look and I see, why the hell did Pete Incaviglia play 29 games in the month of March, 27 in April? I mean, they were playing every single day in the 80s. Yes. I mean, it's incredible because he played 75 games, but without a Super Regional round. I mean, you go 3-0 in the Big 8 tournament. You go 3-1 in the Midwest Regional. That's 4. That's 7. 3 games in the College World Series in 1985. They were runner-up in 1987, so they did not win a title while Incaviglia was there, but that's 3 + 4, 7. So that's 10 postseason games of 75. That's 65 regular season games that Oklahoma State played, which is roughly 9 more than the average or what you're allowed for college baseball teams in the regular season this year. Yeah, here's their March schedule. At South Florida, March 1st, 2 on the 2nd, a doubleheader. Then you play Eastern Michigan. On the 3rd, Western Michigan. On the 4th, these are all in Florida, so it's a tournament. So let's see, March 3rd, March 4th, doubleheader, March 5th, March 6th, March 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, doubleheader, 12th, doubleheader, 13th, 15th, doubleheader, 16th, 23rd, doubleheader, 24th, doubleheader, 26th, 28th, doubleheader, 31 doubleheader. That is 1, 2, doing doubleheaders here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 9 doubleheaders in the month of March.
That's more than West Virginia's played the entire season, and they've played like 7. That's
for the
crazy.
1985 Oklahoma State Cowboys. 9 doubleheaders.
Had 143 RBIs in 75 games. He wasn't juicing. They just played every day, twice.
Yeah. My first thought is, and he 6'1", 225, 220, give or take. I mean, you watch some of the highlights of Pete Incaviglia, and this guy is a truck around the bay. I mean, he looks like Mark McGuire. He looks like Jose Canseco put into 2 people. That's what he is. He is the love child of each of those human beings. Now, you ask about Pete's, well, you didn't, but I'm going to tell you about his Major League Baseball career. He owns the strikeout record, 1,277 strikeouts, leading the league twice. So he led the league twice in 1986 and 1988, again, setting Oklahoma State NCAA records for home runs, 48, and RBIs at 143, as you documented. But, he did not have a successful – he did play in the big leagues for 12 years, 86 to 98, so he made some money. 6 different teams. Was a first-round draft pick, just 8th overall. You hit 48 home runs and 143 RBIs, and you get drafted 8th? So that tells you there were some, concerns about his ability to hit big league pitching. So,
who was taken first in that draft?
I don't know. Pull it up, man.
What year was he drafted? What'd you say? Was it 85?
Let's see. Yeah, 85.
Let's see. I'll pull it up.
But that doesn't jive with when he was in school. Now, I don't know the rules back then.
Yeah, he was drafted. He was drafted 8th overall by the Montreal Expos in 1985. Here's a name for you: B.J. Surhoff. You remember him?
Love me some B.J. Surhoff.
Drafted out of North Carolina as a catcher by the Milwaukee Brewers, #1 overall was B.J. Surhoff. And then in the same draft, Bobby Witt Sr. was also taken 3rd overall by the Texas Rangers. You had Will Clark out of Mississippi State. We know Will Clark.
Yes.
He was taken 2nd overall by the Giants. You also had Barry Larkin to the Reds in this first round. Jeff Bumgardner to the Twins. Let's see who else stands out here. Oh, Rafael Palmeiro out of Mississippi State to the Chicago Cubs. And why is that important when we're talking about Charlie Condon? Well, Rafael Palmeiro was the first ever player to win the SEC Triple Crown for Mississippi State back in 1984. There was one other to do it. Brent Rooker did it back in 2017, also for Mississippi State, funny enough. But they're the only two that have ever done it until possibly 2024. Charlie Condon's on the doorstep of doing it again.
So Incaviglia hit at least 20 home runs across his first 5 seasons. So there was consistency there. And even his first year, I think he was 10th in the league. He ended up hitting 30 home runs. Well, listen to this, doing some more digging. You talk about a diva, okay? This guy who had 48 homers, 143 RBIs, his final year at Oklahoma State, his 3rd season, took Oklahoma State, helped guide them to 3 College World Series. Again, they never won.
Yep.
Refused to play a single day in the minor leagues upon being drafted. Refused. Would not play. He became the 15th player in Major League Baseball history to make a debut, eventually not for the Expos, but for the Rangers, because the Expos, rightfully so, you trade that mofo. If he's refusing to get out there in the minor league system and is that much of a prima donna, you trade his ass. And they got rid of him, and they sent him to Texas. Eventually, he made his debut. Okay, and he hit 30 bombs, but he also led the league in strikeouts in 1986, 185. So he said,
glad
Rangers,
he led the league in strikeouts. You need to tone your style in the minors, bro. You can't just be like, I'm Pete Incaviglia. I own the NCAA record for homers in a single season. I'm gonna go play in the majors right away. You're not gonna happen. No.
Yeah. So Rangers granted him the request, let him play right away once they made the trade. Made his debut in 86 and 30 home runs, 10th in the league. Rangers club record at the time, 185 Ks though. Currently holding 44th place through as of 2019 on the all-time single-season strikeout record. Thank you, Wikipedia. So, Pete Incaviglia, amazing. He went on to become the hitting coach for the Erie Seawolves, Detroit Tigers, Class AA.
Yeah.
Did that for 3 years, dismissed at the end of the 06 season. First manager of the Grand Prairie Airhogs, October 24th of 07. The Airhogs played in the American Association of Independent Professional Baseball. And let's see. Second manager of the Sugar Land Skeeters of the Atlantic League.
AAA team. Well, they now are a AAA team for the Astros.
That's right.
They're affiliated now. Jazz, I have an exercise for you to do when you're done with your deep dive. Just type in Pete Incaviglia in Google, nothing else, and look at the first picture that comes up and tell me what that reminds you of.
Okay, I will. He replaced. God, I can't. Well, we know we can't. I can't speak. He replaced Gary Gaetti. How about that name?
Whoa,
Gary
Never thought I'd
Gaetti.
hear that name again.
As the manager of the Sugar Land Skeeters. Okay, let's do a Google. Pete Incaviglia. First picture. Yeah, I love that. He. We're talking about older Pete Incaviglia, right? As a manager. Yeah.
I thought it was Santa Claus.
Yeah, that dude slaps. Yeah. He's
he drinks, let himself go a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, what if you're Pete Incaviglia and you hit 48 home runs and 143 RBIs? I mean, I'm surprised it took him this long to let himself go. I mean, goodness.
Another reason you got to play in the minors. You got to keep working out, bro. Come on.
Yeah, but he looks like Uncle Pete. Like everyone wants an Uncle Pete or an Uncle Dave. Right. Like he looks like Uncle Pete. He's going to show you a good time. He's going to show you the ropes. He's going to teach you a little bit about life, a little bit about bourbon, maybe some stogies, all of that.
Some gin, maybe, or is that just Snoop?
Yeah, could just be Snoop.
By the way, speaking of Oklahoma State, what the fuck, Big 12? What the fuck? Like they're doing it again. We laid it out. We were like, this is going to come down to the wire. The Big 12 has the 3-horse race, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, West Virginia. And what happens? West Virginia goes to Cincinnati and loses 2 of 3. Disgraceful. Oklahoma State lost at Texas, who all of a sudden, we put the Longhorns in the coffin. We were like, this is not their year. Forget about them. They're not going to Omaha. They're not going to get their NCAA leading 39th appearance in the College World Series. Well, guess what? They might. 4th straight SEC or Big 12 series win for Texas. They're now tied for 2nd with West Virginia and Oklahoma State. And Oklahoma, meanwhile, has come back and swept Texas Tech in Lubbock, which didn't think that was going to happen. The Oklahoma's very good, but Texas Tech has been someone we've been talking about as being kind of like hanging around and being a very stingy out in the postseason. And Oklahoma goes to Lubbock and sweeps them. This weekend went the exact opposite of the way I thought it would. I thought West Virginia would definitely take 2 of 3 in Cincinnati. I thought Oklahoma would lose that series to Texas Tech, and I thought Oklahoma State would beat Texas. So everything went the exact opposite of the way I projected. And now the Sooners have a 3-game lead on Texas, OK State, and West Virginia with 2 weekends to play. So the Big 12 might, it's not decided, but I mean, uphill battle for anybody not named Oklahoma.
Yeah, 3 teams? You think 4 at best for the Big 12?
I think those 4 that I just mentioned are getting in.
Yeah. So
Texas, honestly, Texas Tech should also get in.
No, I don't know, man. 30 and 20 RPI 50. Your RPI is 53. You get a 12 and 15.
Yeah, the RPI is going to hurt. That's going to hurt. No, Texas. No, they've fallen more than I thought. It's funny because they're the one of 3 teams in the league that have 30 wins overall right now. Them, Oklahoma State, and Texas. But yeah, I don't know. They might not have enough to get in if their RPI is at 50. Yeah, Oklahoma. We'll cut it at 4 for right now. Texas Tech might not have enough. Wow, that series against Oklahoma is going to really hurt them.
Okay, so just real quick, again, 34 at-large spots. I'm giving 10 to the SEC at this point. Really, I should go lower, but just for the purpose of this exercise, real quick, and 6 from the ACC, the top 3 in each division. Just looking. Okay, I cut it off at Louisville and I cut it off at Virginia Tech. Neither of those 2 teams are getting in, but everybody above them. That's 6 teams in total in the ACC. So that's 16 spots. That gives you 18 at-large. We'll go 4 for the Big 12, just based off of everything you just said. All right? That gives us 14 teams. I'm going 4 out of the pack. Okay? That gives us 10. 4 Sun Belt. One of those, and maybe it's only 3, but let's just say 4 Sun Belt. That'll take us to 6. 2 out of the Big West.
Yep. Have to. Irvine and UCSB. Got to do it.
That takes us to 4. I think 2 out of the CAA. In Northeastern and Wilmington as kind of the front runners for that one. That leaves you 2, at this point. 2 for the Big Ten, which if it's the Big Ten, I'm glad you bring them up. Indiana, first series win in West Lafayette since 2002. They had to come back from a 4-1 deficit on Sunday against the Boilers. They come back to win 5-4. They're in a 3-way tie for second place. Nebraska, Purdue, and Indiana all at 12 and 6. Illinois is leading the league. Okay. The team with the best RPI is Nebraska at 21. So as of right now, I think Nebraska gets in, but if they win the tournament, do one of those other Big Ten teams even get in because their RPIs are so bad? Illinois is at 60. Purdue is at 69. Indiana is at 62. So you need somebody not named Nebraska, but Illinois, Purdue, and Indiana to win that tournament. And then you get 2 in, and then that's all your bids right there.
Totally agree. And the thing about the Big Ten is that is the biggest bid stealer opportunity right now, is if somebody else not named Nebraska wins the Big Ten tournament, they're getting 2 in. If Nebraska wins, I'm with you. I think that's it. And then you got one out there, which enables a conference like the SEC to get their 10 in. Or possibly a 5th in the Big 12 or a 7th in the ACC based on the map that you laid out. Yeah, I'm with you.
I was sitting in 5th place at 13 and 8, so they're a game and a half back. Brody Brack, 36 strikeouts over his last 3 appearances. 36 over his last 3. Yeah, pretty good.
How about Indiana though? Because remember, way back in February, which I don't know about you, dude, it feels like eons ago. I feel like that was
Where
another
did the
life.
where did the term eons come from? Can you educate me? What is that deriving?
You want me to give you the etymology of eons? I mean,
Yeah,
I can
I
try.
just wonder where it came from.
Okay.
How would you even begin to spell it? Oh, it is how I thought.
EONS.
Okay.
Yes. The well, it was actually ecclesiastical Latin from Greek, meaning
Excuse me?
age. Ecclesiastical. Try saying that word.
Ecclesiastical.
Oh, good job. You nailed it. Yeah, it's a Greek origin word meaning age from the Greek word ion. So there's your forming of the word eon. But yeah, good pronunciation of ecclesiastical.
Thank you.
Where the hell? Oh, sorry. Indiana was in the top 25. That's the point I was trying to make. Remember that way back at the start of the year?
Yeah.
There was we were high on Iowa. That's not turned out well. We were high on Indiana because they started off really well. And then they kind of petered out and we're like, oh, Big Ten, whatever. Fine. Okay. We'll get one team and we'll forget about it. And yeah. And now here they come. Here come the Hoosiers.
Oh,
so we'll see. It's going to be I said last week when we were doing our exercise of who's going to win the Power 5 conferences, I literally said, take these 5 teams from the Big Ten, throw them at the window and see which one sticks because I have no fucking idea who's going to win.
Yeah, Indiana dropped 2 of 3 in Frisco, and they got blown away by Alabama 12-0, and then Arizona 12-1, which aren't terrible losses. You didn't really compete there, and then you dropped 2 out of 3 to Troy. Which, look at Troy. How about my surefire lock? Really, I gave you 2 of them because I told you LSU would knock off A&M, but I wasn't willing to go all in. But I did give you Troy. You took the first 2 and had a chance even to sweep Louisiana over the weekend. But after the sweep at Coastal, they back it up with 2 out of 3 at Louisiana, win the series. So my surefire lock hits. That's a little tease for my dude, Brooks Bryan, who only had 4 RBIs on the weekend. I'll give it to you right now. But Brooks Bryan is my dude of the week because this guy, this is more of a body of work, lifetime achievement. And sorry, Con, I don't know if you're ready to move on, but we only got about 10 minutes left before you get to catch a flight.
We're fine.
Brooks Bryan, 78 RBIs to lead the entire country for Troy. And he's only got 17 home runs. So Charlie Condon, who has 33 home runs, has 69 RBIs. Almost half of his RBIs are coming off the long ball. And then you have Brooks Bryan, who has 78, 9 fewer home runs than the second and third place Ribby dudes in Division I, 6 fewer home runs than Braden Montgomery, who has 23 for Texas A&M. He's 4th in RBIs. And then Charlie Condon is 7th in RBIs. So Brooks Bryan, my guy, making the most of the opportunities with dudes on base. His slunging numbers aren't, astronomical, but 78 RBIs, good for you, good for Troy, Sunbelt leader. Only 4 RBI. Well, none on Sunday, but they are going to win the Sunbelt. I know they're still.
I'm not talking about the Troy. That's correct. They're leading the Sunbelt, but you are leaving out a very important Sunbelt individual. When you're talking about Brooks Bryan from Troy, got to give some love to the people in Boone and Banks Tolley of App State. You heard of this guy?
Oh.
Program record 21 homers this year, which is first in the Sun Belt. More than Brooks Bryan. First in slugging, first in OPS, first in total bases, second in average with 385, third in hits, and 4th in runs. He's also got 23 multi-hit games. So you can laud your boy Brooks Bryan all you want. And Troy is great. They won the series. Good for the Trojans. But if you're going to talk about dominating hitters in the Sun Belt, you can't leave out Banks Tolley.
He's not related to Peyton Tolley.
Spelled differently. Tolley for Banks Tolley. Okay. Peyton Tolley is just Tolle.
Let's see what this guy looks like. Got to pull him up. Got to pull him up. Banks Tolley. Oh, he's very sheepish. Looks like a young lad.
Sheepish.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sheepish. 6
Okay.
foot senior, 200 pounds, Madison, Mississippi. Transfer from Ole Miss. How about that?
Ooh.
Brooks Bryan. Yeah, he's pretty boring too. He's 6'2".
He's got a little he does have a little sheepish grin on his face in that cover photo on his bio.
Yeah, got a little Darren Clark to him.
Oh.
Got a little Darren Clark look to him,
You mean Derek Clark?
Derek Clark, yeah. Sorry, West Virginia.
Yeah. Who got
rocked. Yeah.
Sorry.
One more nugget on Troy. Okay, so in the game that they're coming back against Louisiana, they ended up losing 14-13 in 10 innings, but they had a 6-run ninth inning to force extra innings against Louisiana. They were down 12-6. They got a grand slam from Will Butcher. We're down 14-12. Lost 14-13. So Louisiana, that does hit over the weekend. Okay, what else? We got
Power 10. Let's rip through them.
All right, let's rip through it real quick. I'm not gonna wax any longer than we need to. Tennessee, Clemson, A&M, Kentucky, Arkansas are my 1 through 5, which matches identically with the top 25 put up with D1 baseball in the NCAA. I got ECU and Oregon State 6 and 7. ECU falls back a spot in the top 25 simply because of all the chaos near the top. In Arkansas, you get the Hagen-Smith game and you think the Arkansas, offense has found something. Kendall Diggs broke out of a huge slump, and McIntyre is able to come in, give some long relief after Hagen, and you win the Hagen-Smith game, but then each of your 2 other starters are trash, really. Brady Tigert, who was really putting something together the last few weeks, fell off the wagon. Mason Molina couldn't throw strikes on Sunday. The bullpen got roughed up quite a bit, and Kentucky just made plays. I mean, Kentucky was reeling, losing consecutive series to Tennessee and South Carolina. They get right at home, and they needed that. Kentucky, just when you thought, they were frauds, potentially, they show up in the biggest of ways, and Arkansas and Dave Van Horn just continuing to kick themselves over this offense. And then after Oregon State at 7, Florida State, 8, 8, Florida State, 9, Duke, and I've got Mississippi State at 10, man.
Okay, I do too. So our top 5, same teams, different order. Tennessee number 1, no question about it. 7 straight series, took 2 of 3 at Florida. Arkansas stayed at number 2 for me, actually. I know they lost 2 of 3 at Kentucky, but Kentucky is an Omaha caliber team. I'm not going to ding them too terribly much for that. Hagen-Smith, as you mentioned, dominating again, 6 innings, 14 Ks, 9 double-digit strikeout games for Hagen on the season. By the way, Arkansas, 7th straight full season with 40 or more wins for Arkansas. So congrats to the Hogs there. Kentucky jumps 3 spots for me to number 3, right below Arkansas. They have a chance to be a top, excuse me, they have a chance to be a top 8 national seed for the first time ever. Nick Mingione's got this team rolling in the right direction. Did you make Omaha for the first time ever?
Did you realize Kentucky has never been to the NCAA tournament in back-to-back years? Have we talked about that before?
I don't think we have, but it's actually in my notes. I was literally seconds away from saying that.
Sorry.
And if you check our Hoover OneNote, it's in there because I found that and I put it in. So
I just
Kentucky
can't believe
has never made the postseason in back-to-back years.
Yeah, that's incredible. And they're gonna go from being
last year.
They're going to be a top 16 last year, and then they're going to make the tournament for the first time in consecutive years, and then likely be a national seed, a top 8
for the first time ever. Yes. Yeah. And go to Omaha for the first time ever, potentially. Number 4, Texas A&M drops 3 spots to number 4 for me after dropping 2 of 3 at LSU. First series loss for them in the SEC since the opening weekend of conference play. Clemson had to drop 1 as well due to all the chaos from 4 to 5. They did take 2 of 3, though, from Georgia Tech, so want to give the Tigers their praise. They ended the Yellow Jackets 4-series ACC win streak. ECU as well drops down to number 1. They did take 2 of 3 from USF, though it was a forced doubleheader in the finale because somebody fed USF some bunk food on Saturday, Shass, and they got food poisoning. So and there was some choice words from your boy Cliff Godwin about
Cliff Godwin was pissed.
What the heck happened? Yeah.
So the American
that series.
The American rule is you got to do a 9 and a 7 on a doubleheader.
Wait, he was pissed. I think he was pissed. They had to play a doubleheader to begin with. They were like, so the team got food poisoning. Field who's healthy, like
because Alabama also got hit with food poisoning, and it did not affect the schedule. Godwin pointed out, as he was told, I don't have any way of confirming this, but apparently Alabama only had 5 guys for batting practice on one day, able to swing a bat. They went out against Mississippi State, dropped the first 2, and good on the Crimson Tide and getting Game 3. And similarly at Clark LeClaire in Greenville, Vegas, where I was on Friday for graduation. I was at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. People were passing out left and right. I hope nobody died. I hope everybody's okay. It was hot. That sun was beating down at 10 a.m. It might have been only 82, 83 degrees, but it felt like 95. I mean, it was intense. But, Cliff Godwin calling out the AAC for forcing them to do a 9 and a 7 and not getting the games in as scheduled, so they don't play on Saturday. And even Sunday they lose the finale 5-4, and then they get penalized. They drop a spot because of, as I said, the chaos near the top. but they had an action clock violation that was, very, what's the word? Very skeptical.
Consequential.
Yeah, very consequential late in the game, but also the controversy attached to it because I think it was Riley Johnson. Was he in the box, with 8 seconds left on the clock? Like, it's so
get the replay.
So relative,
take a look.
And you're trying to figure out when the clock is starting. Like, there are still some things, as much as the game has been sped up, things can differ. And there are too many variables still at play for us to, standardizing this. But in Greenville, you would think, the umpire should read the room and know where he is and not make that call in that moment for the nation's 5th best team at home. And you do that. And then there was a moment, too, where the South Florida catcher got ejected for arguing a call that didn't go his way. I think he was trying to frame a pitch. Could have been a called strike 3, and he ended up getting ejected. And this was the same guy who earlier in the series was flicking off the ECU fans at one point, too. So there was some fireworks. ECU won 2 out of 3, though, this weekend, nonetheless. So Mississippi State, real quick snapshot of them. We each have them at 10, you said?
Yeah, but I have to give my 7, 8, and 9 first.
Oh, so go ahead.
Let's get to Mississippi State at the end. Oregon State back in my power 10 at number 7. I egregiously left them out last week. Sorry, Beavers. They took 2 of 3 at Washington State. Also 7 homers last night in a Monday night 20-13 onslaught against Gonzaga. Travis Bazana had 2 more. He's got 26 on the season. Single season program records for Bazana. Tied for second with Cags, Roman Kuntz of Morehead State, and Lyle Miller Green of Austin P. And the Beavers, by the way, now have 16 homers in their last 5 games. So Oregon State red hot with the sticks. Georgia is into my power 10 at number 8 after sweeping Vanderbilt for the first time since 2003, outscoring them 36-11, run ruling them in each of their first 2 games, and winning 5 straight overall. Oklahoma into the power 10. You sweep Texas Tech in Lubbock. That's a big series win for the Sooners. Up 3 games in the Big 12. They're number 9. Mississippi State, number 10. And I'll let you give more of a snapshot, but 2 of 3 versus Alabama. RPI is now up to 18 for the Bulldogs. Durangelo Sainja with his second quality start in the last 3 outings, 7 innings, 1 run, 8 Ks on 110 pitches in the win over Alabama for him in his most recent outing.
Talk about fireworks. We're going to get them this weekend in Fayetteville. Mississippi State goes on the road to take on Arkansas. They will finish at home against Missouri. And yeah, as I said last week, when Hunter Hines was my dude, after his weekend, he had a couple home runs in game 1 against Alabama, continuing his tear. He's got 14 dongs on the season. Dakota Jordan, 16 homers to lead this team, hitting .367, also the leader in average, OPS 1.201. I mean, Mississippi State, as I said, they're going to be hosting. And last week, their comeback against Vanderbilt in game 3 to be able to win that series in Music City, I thought really solidified that. And, I think encapsulated really the play of this team and their turnaround from the last 2 years. So they continue to play phenomenal baseball, which of course Starkville natives love. Postseason baseball at the Dude is always going to be better. And that's going to be a raucous series this weekend in Fayetteville for sure, no doubt. That's all I had on Mississippi State. So
yeah, I mean, I'm excited to just see Mississippi State in Hoover. We haven't seen them yet.
Yeah.
The 2 years that we've been there, it was the year after they won the College World Series. They didn't make it, and they didn't make it last year either. So yeah, I'm really excited to see Mississippi State, see Chris Lemonis and company come to Hoover and do some damage. They're the 5th best team in the SEC right now. So good on them. All right, so. Actually, I'll skip to my hat tip because Mississippi State is my hat tip, actually, funny enough. They are like the quietest contending SEC team out there for my book. They could easily host a regional if things break their way. Like I said, their RPI is up to 18. You look at the guys on their team, I mean, they're led by Dakota Jordan hitting .367, 16 bombs, 56 dingers. But, they got a lot of pop in their lineup, and they have 2 really solid starters in Cal Steven and Durangelo Sainja, who's that switch pitcher, who's the real reason I want to see Mississippi State in Hoover, because I want to call a game with a switch pitcher. I think that'd be really, really cool, because there's a bunch of unique rules that go along with switch pitchers as well, and me being the nerd that I am, I want to talk about it. But they got 2 really, really solid starters in him and Cal Steven. Tyler Davis has been an absolute stalwart out of the bullpen for them. So Mississippi State just kind of hanging around. No one's really talking about them too much, but you're in the top 20 in RPI. People should be talking about you. So hat tip to Mississippi State for just, flying under the radar.
My hat tip would be Flamingos. You and I both enjoyed a graduation party on Sunday. Cinco de Mayo, the 5th of May. By the way, Zach Bryan has a song, 5th of May. Make sure you look that up, listen to it on your travels to the airport before you catch a flight to Chi-Town. But yeah, Flamingos are on full force. We had a all-you-can-drink margarita bar, taco bar. It was
So good.
It was good. It was comfortable. It was at a bingo hall of sorts
Felt like it.
Yeah, it did feel like it, but that was fun. So it just, good summer vibes this past weekend for sure. It's been a lot of rain here in the Carolinas over the last few days, but I think it's going to get up to 88 degrees tomorrow for Punch's game, which hopefully she's feeling better because she missed school Monday and Tuesday. So we hope to get back at it. 16 consecutive hits. Had it rain out on Saturday. We'll see what tomorrow brings. But yeah, hat tip to Flamingos and summer vibes. Hot boy summer. It is here. Social display of affection. Out the door, you can touch on a lineup card. You've got tarp slides for Georgia. You can elaborate if you'd like. I got the NCAA stadium bracket that the NCAA Twitter, social media, Instagram all put out. I think it was Thursday. So that was a cool 16-seated type thing. One major surprise in beef, and this is more of a fan-fueled event, but the beef I had was putting Florida's Condon family ballpark even in that, a stadium that's been open for, 2 years? Like, they have no business being in there. Yeah. 4 years, excuse me. They didn't get to really play in it the COVID year, I don't think. So I think this is only
nobody played in anywhere the COVID year. So yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. So mine is Georgia tarp slides because I don't know if you saw this, but NCAA baseball also Instagrammed a post of Georgia's team pulling the tarp off the field during their series with Vanderbilt. And so the team does it. There's no grounds crew. And one of the freshmen from Georgia was late to the tarp pull. So he comes sprinting out of the dugout and tries to hop onto the tarp and misses and just takes a dive and just rolls on the tarp. And it's really funny to watch. So go watch that video. But the reason I want to bring it up is I have actually executed this maneuver perfectly before.
Like a
in my time
surfboard?
in minor league baseball. Yes. So I was late to a tarp pull one time. I was in New Orleans. It was my first year in minor league baseball with the then Zephyrs. Then they became the Baby Cakes. Now they're the Wichita Wind Surge. But when they were the Zephyrs, I was late to a tarp pull because I was up in the broadcast booth, so I had to come down and help. But they had already started pulling the tarp off the field. So I literally sprinted up the dugout steps and just leapt over the curled edge of the tarp and in one full motion landed both feet on the tarp, grabbed the handle, and just kept running. And I didn't slip at all. And it's the coolest athletic thing I've ever done in my entire life. So I just wanted to bring that up.
That's amazing. Good on you. I've got some good tarp pour stories too. We really don't have time for it, but in high school, manning the tarp. One time, our overweight, obese pitching coach got wrapped up and fell, and I didn't think he was going to survive. I mean, he got completely swallowed up by that tarp in the middle of the field, and we had to pull him to safety. It took maybe 20, 30 minutes to get him unraveled, but that was fun.
Yeah,
all right, that's all I got.
Lineup card quickly. Agree with you on why the heck are we playing some of these games because RPI is at stake, even though it shouldn't be. I saw something on Twitter, by the way. Kendall Rogers posted this last night. Drop your team's bottom 3 RPI games across the board. I think that's a beautiful solution. We should try it. Just want to put that out there. 4 games to watch, though, because we don't. Why not watch college baseball, right? It's center stage. Let's do it. Louisville and Vanderbilt battle the barrel. ECU and Duke, Alabama at Troy, and the Duel in the Desert, Arizona at Arizona State. Not a Pac-12 game because it's in the midweek. That's it. That's all we got. And, Chi-Town, here I come.
Duke at ECU. In Louisville, the only team Vanderbilt has played in both regionals, super regionals, and the College World Series. Battle of the Barrel. There's a few games for you on a Tuesday. All right, Con, safe travels. We'll talk to you again on Thursday, okay? At SportsCon4, at Kyle Schass. This has been Dugouts, Dumbbells, and Dingers from College Sports Now.